There's a field behind a budget hotel in Kingsport, Tennessee. Overgrown, quiet. The kind of place that exists in the blind spots of a city where homeless people sleep in the summer and the grass grows tall enough that you could disappear into it and nobody passing by on the road would ever know. That field is the last confirmed place anyone saw Layla Santanello. She was 20 years old. Someone who, according to everyone who loved her, filled every room she walked into with an energy so loud, so alive, you'd feel it leave when she did. Layla went missing on June 27th, 2023, and what has followed since then is the kind of story that keeps you up at night, not because it's sensational, but because of how quiet the whole thing has been. A young woman vanishes from a mid-sized American city, and for months barely anyone outside her community even knew her name. I've spent a significant amount of time going deep on this case. The timeline, the people involved, the investigation, the things that don't add up. And I want to be upfront with you before we go any further. Where I have facts, I'll give you facts. Where something is unconfirmed or speculative, I will tell you that clearly, because this is a real family. Layla has a daughter who is going to grow up one day and search her mother's name. This story deserves to be told right. So, let's talk about Layla. Layla Marie Santanello was born on August 5th, 2002, almost 2 weeks late, which her mom Jennifer will tell you was very on brand. She was born in Neptune Township, New Jersey, and from her very first days, the photographs tell you everything. This was a child who arrived with an opinion about the world. Her parents Jennifer and George separated when she was just 3 months old. Layla grew up primarily with her mom and her maternal grandparents, the anchors of her early childhood. Dinner time, bedtime, summer afternoons, it was her grandparents. That bond never left her. Jennifer eventually moved the family to Tennessee to be closer to extended family, and Kingsport became home. Every summer, Layla went back to New Jersey. Girl Scout camp, time with her grandparents, time with her dad, George. By all accounts, they made the blended family actually work. When she was 8, her grandparents relocated to Tennessee too. Something shifted. She started to thrive. She had space and support to discover who she was, and what she found was that she was creative in a way that went bone deep. Art camps, drama clubs, theater, singing. She was the kid who forgot her lines entirely mid-performance, ad-libbed through the whole thing, and did it so convincingly that nobody in the audience noticed. Jennifer has told that story more than once. It's the story of someone who didn't panic under pressure, someone who always found a way. Her family describes her as resourceful, sassy, fearless, strong-willed. Her love language was gifts, constantly drawing and painting things for the people she loved. She was diagnosed with ADHD in first grade, later with dyslexia. She graduated high school early anyway, got a job, showed up for herself in ways that, given everything she'd been through, were genuinely remarkable. Her stepmom Brittany came into her life in 2019. Layla was guarded at first. She'd had people leave before, but Brittany made a promise. I'm not going anywhere. She kept it. That relationship grew into something real. Then in April of 2021, Layla became a mother. Nova Grace was born, and by every account, this baby was wanted. Layla had dreamed about becoming a mother since she was a little girl. She was 18 and she was ready, even if nothing else was particularly stable. Nova's father was not going to be in the picture. The family rallied. For a while things were okay. Then they weren't. This part of the story matters, and it needs to be told with care. The year leading up to Layla's disappearance was one of compounding losses. Postpartum depression set in after Nova was born, a real clinical condition, not something to wave away. Around the same time, Layla's grandfather, the man who had essentially co-raised her, who had been her bedtime and her dinner table and her safety, passed away. Grief, postpartum, and other traumas she was quietly carrying led her into a period of addiction. Her family has been open about this. Not because it defines her, it does not, but because hiding it hasn't helped anyone find her. Here is the detail I want you to hold on to. Layla Santanello spent most of her life being vocally against drugs. She walked away from relationships where it was happening. She was not someone who stumbled naively into this. She was someone who knew exactly what it was, had spent years avoiding it, and then hit a stretch of pain so heavy that she didn't have enough left to keep the door shut. That is not a character flaw. That is a human being at the end of her rope. She also tried to help her boyfriend Michael through his own addiction, tried to get him clean. That relationship with Michael David Thompson would become one of the most disturbing subplots of everything that came after. By June of 2023, Layla was 20 years old. Nova, now 2, was temporarily in the care of Jennifer. The relationship with Michael, living together at his mother's house in Kingsport, had become what her family describes as toxic, codependent, and controlling. She didn't have her own phone. She and Michael were sharing his. That detail will matter.
Anyway, in June of 2023, picture it, late June 2023, my daughter, who was struggling with active addiction, and who was also in a very unhealthy, toxic relationship, she vanished. At first, she vanished just from the people closest to her. And, we started looking for her based on her boyfriend's concern that I took for psychosis, I want to say. I took his concern as obsession.
Saturday, June 24th, 2023. Jennifer received a Facebook message from Layla's account, but it wasn't Layla sending it. It was Michael. One sentence. Do you know if Layla is in jail? That's how this starts. Not a phone call, not a visit, a message from her boyfriend sent through her account asking her mother if she was in jail. Jennifer called the jails, called the hospitals, nothing. Michael never responded to any of her follow-up questions. That night, Jennifer, knowing her daughter, knowing the dynamic of that relationship, went to bed believing Layla had likely left the house after an argument and didn't want Michael to know where she was. The next morning, June 25th, she got a message from Layla's account, and this time, it was actually Layla. I'm okay, I'm staying with a friend. I don't have a phone. Jennifer could sense her daughter was being vague on purpose. She knew Michael had access to the account. She wasn't going to ask Layla to reveal her location when the person who might want to find her against her will was watching the same messages, so she just said, I love you. Layla's last words to her mother were, I love you so much more. By the morning of June 26th, Michael was messaging Jennifer again, more urgent now. He said he'd figured out where she was staying, gone there, and was told by the friend that Layla had gone outside for a walk and a cigarette, and never came back. Jennifer reached out to a family member who ran in the same circles. Nothing. She called George. That night, Jennifer and George discussed whether to call it in. Jennifer, operating under the widespread but completely false belief that you have to wait 48 hours to report a missing adult, said, if we don't hear from her by morning, we call. George couldn't sleep. Sometime after midnight, he made the call. Police took the report. They did not hesitate. Within hours, officers were at Michael's mother's house asking questions. On the morning of June 27th, the same day the report was filed, there was a sighting. Near the Americourt Hotel on North Eastman Road in Kingsport, a grassy area behind the property where homeless individuals were known to sleep in warmer months, a young woman matching Layla's description approached some workers who were getting ready for a shift. She asked if they had a cigarette. They didn't. She walked away. That field behind the Americourt Hotel is the last confirmed place Layla Santanello was seen. What happened at the hotel the night before is important. Witnesses said Layla had been knocking on doors, appearing confused, like she didn't know what room her friend was in. Hotel staff said she seemed paranoid. One described her as lurking in the shadows. Security footage existed. It was wiped after 48 hours before anyone could preserve it. A police officer arrived at the hotel that night, not for Layla, for something else entirely, but she saw the car, got spooked, and ran into that field. For several months after Layla disappeared, investigators were operating off a false lead. A young woman who looked vaguely like Layla was seen near the Marble Slab Creamery, an ice cream shop about 15-20 minutes walk from the field. This woman was barefoot, disheveled, and asked a store employee to borrow her phone. She said she was going to walk to Five Below to get shoes. For months, this was believed to be Layla. It wasn't. Here's what's maddening about this. All investigators had to do was check the number this woman called from the employee's phone, trace who received it, and ask them who they were. That's it. That's the whole process. It took months. When they finally did it, they confirmed the woman at the ice cream shop was not Layla and had no connection to her disappearance. Months of searching in the wrong direction because a straightforward verification step wasn't completed. On August 3rd, over 5 weeks after she was reported missing, Layla was officially classified as a missing and endangered adult. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation got involved. A large-scale search took place on August 15th, covering the Greenbelt Trail, the field, and surrounding areas. Approximately 100 first responders, drones, K9 units, underwater sonar, roughly 320 acres searched. Nothing. Her bank accounts had not been touched. No phone to trace. No footage recovered. No new leads from surveillance pulled from nearby buildings. In November, the family organized their own 4-day search with private investigator Steve Pfizer. The same areas were prioritized. Rain had made some sections inaccessible during the first search. A second vigil was held. And then, something the family noticed during that vigil stopped them cold. Most people in Kingsport had no idea Layla was missing. In their own city, nearly 5 months later. A few weeks after Layla disappeared, someone accessed her Cash App account and began sending requests to her family. This needs to be described carefully because it is genuinely one of the more disturbing things in this case. The requests came with messages. One included the letters TWLMG, they won't let me go. Others were more graphic, threats about what would happen to Layla if money wasn't sent. Her family, not knowing what was real, started sending small amounts, $1, $2, not to comply, but to ask questions, to try to figure out if Layla was actually on the other end. Whoever was sending the messages was good at mimicking her, good enough to fool people who loved her for long enough to cause real psychological damage. Law enforcement initially told them it was a scam. Weeks passed, the requests kept coming. Eventually, investigators traced the requests back to a specific house and a specific cell phone. Both belonged to Michael David Thompson, Layla's boyfriend. On February 14, 2024, Michael was indicted. The charges: identity theft, theft under $1,000, illegal possession, and fraudulent use of a credit or debit card, and extortion. Kingsport PD made a statement at the time of his arrest, reiterating that they do not believe Michael was involved in Layla's disappearance. That is the official position, and it should be stated clearly as such. It is the position of law enforcement, based on their investigation. What is also true, Michael knew Layla better than almost anyone. He shared a phone with her. He had access to her Facebook account. We know this because he used it on June 24th. He had access to her Cash App. He knew the intimate patterns of her speech well enough to deceive her family for weeks. He is the last person known to have been in regular contact with her before she left. And rather than using any of that access or knowledge to help find her, he used it to extort her grieving mother for $200. You can hold the official statement and these facts at the same time. Both are true. The questions they raise are unresolved. By March 2024, investigators had entered Layla's information into VICAP and NamUs, conducted a search of Michael's home, issued more than 25 subpoenas, and served over 30 search warrants. That is significant investigative activity. Whether it has produced answers the family hasn't been given access to, that remains unknown. On October 15, 2023, roughly 4 months after Layla disappeared, a 19-year-old woman named Holland Snap went missing from the Kingsport area. The similarities are the kind that make people uncomfortable. Both young women, both small in stature, both struggling with addiction, both disappearing from the same relatively small Appalachian city, both cases receiving almost no local media coverage. Kingsport police have said they do not believe the two cases are connected. That is their official position, and it is worth noting. What is also worth noting, Northeast Tennessee has been formally identified as being at severe risk for human trafficking. Kingsport sits at a geographic intersection, close to the Virginia border, a few hours from North Carolina, accessible to multiple interstates. That context exists. How much weight it carries in either of these cases is unknown. What the two families share now is something no family should have in common: the specific, grinding experience of being the parents of a missing young woman in a community that didn't know she was gone. Layla's daughter Nova Grace is 4 years old. She is already asking questions. Her family is already facing the thing no parent should have to face. How do you explain to a child why her mother isn't here? How do you hold space for her grief when you're drowning in your own? Jennifer, Layla's mum, has built a platform on TikTok to keep awareness alive. She posts updates, she talks about her daughter. She has done this for nearly 2 years now, quietly, consistently, in the way that mothers of missing children do when the world has mostly moved on and they haven't. Brittany, Layla's stepmom, two women who loved the same girl and never competed over it, which says something important about the kind of people Layla had in her corner, has been equally relentless. She's not just a daughter, Brittany has said. She's a bonus daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a niece, a cousin, a friend. Better yet, she's a person that deserves to be found. A non-profit called Layla's Hope was founded to provide resources and support to missing, runaway, and homeless young adults. There is a GoFundMe directing funds toward the reward for information, toward ongoing search efforts, and toward the cost of raising Nova Grace while her mother is missing. Here is where we stand, as clearly as it can be stated. What is confirmed, Layla Santanello was last seen on the morning of June 27, 2023, in or near the field behind the Americourt Hotel on Northeastman Road in Kingsport, Tennessee. Her bank accounts have not been used. She had no phone. She is 4'10", between 115 and 135 pounds, brown eyes, and at the time of her disappearance had bleached blonde hair with brown roots. What is unknown? Where she is, what happened in the hours and days after that last sighting, whether anyone she encountered in that area has ever been fully questioned, who the friend at the hotel was that night, and why that person apparently never made more of an effort to help her reach her family, what Michael Thompson actually knows, whether Layla is alive, what this family believes, that someone took her, that she is out there, that the right person seeing her face could change everything. What I believe, that the truth, whatever it is, deserves to be told. And that Layla Santanello, a mother, an artist, a girl who ad-libbed her way through a school play and made everyone believe she'd rehearsed it, deserves to have her name spoken by more than just the people already looking for her.